What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Toxie Boyo. I know it's been a little while. Actually, no, it hasn't. Uploads the last week or so were probably a little irregular, but you may not have noticed anything different whatsoever. I took a little break, kind of ran out of prepped content. Things got a little out of hand, but that's okay because we're back. We're here to talk about Invincible Season 4. That's right. 4 seasons of Invincible. Now, I know I haven't really reviewed a season of Invincible since that first season ended all those years ago. I've done a couple videos talking about it since then, sure. I think I've done 3 in the past year. But yeah, I have not reviewed an actual season of Invincible since Season 1. If you're interested in me doing that, I highly doubt that they would do well here on YouTube. But I could drop them over on Patreon. If you want to support the Patreon for $1 a month, you can hear what I think about those and other exclusive videos. There's plenty of good stuff over there. Feel free to check it out if you have the time. And while you're clicking buttons, why don't you go ahead and subscribe and leave a like if you are a fan of Invincible. I'm going to be talking about it a lot more over the next couple years probably. So let's get the show on the road. So I guess with, you know, the consistent topic of conversation over the last couple of years with Invincible has been the animation quality, so I guess I will address that, the gigantic billion-dollar elephant in the room. The animation is still consistently bad. Well, I'll put it this way. I think that it is a show that has too big of a budget for such mediocre animation. We're still seeing a lot of, PNGs being dragged across the screen, background assets losing frame rate. Two of the biggest things that kind of drove me crazy were episode 4, Harm, that hell episode. There were a lot of corners being cut in that one. For instance, the gag where Mark and Damien are falling down that pit. They're falling for about 5 minutes of screen time, and there's the gag about the nanobot helmet or whatever that Damien's wearing, but the actual animation sequence between him taking it off and putting it on, it's just 3 frames where it glows white and then parts of it appear on his head. There's really not much going on. It's 2 static PNGs with Damien's tail wagging a little bit in the wind as they fall. And then when they get down there, Mark throws Damien back up the pit, and we follow Damien instead of Mark, so we don't get to watch Mark fight this monster to get Satan's crown or anything like that. Also in that episode, most of the action is off screen. Like that beginning fight against what's her name, Volcanica. A lot of the fight happens in shadow. Like you see silhouettes, which saves time and saves money. It's frustrating because I was excited for that episode, and it's like, oh, this is a completely original plotline, not from the comics. Robert wanted to do this, but he cut it out originally. So not only is it a new storyline, but it's one that Robert's been thinking about for years. He's probably been thinking about the perfect way to implement it into the show. And it just ends up not amounting to anything. It's basically just an hour-long teaser for more Damien. I don't really care because he hasn't shown up since season 1, other than that little teaser that he has at the end of season 3 to set up this episode, which is a teaser to set up a future episode with more Damien. The whole thing with Satan was a waste of time because the first half of the episode is devoted to him getting his power back, and then when he does, he goes and he fights Volcanica, and he loses. Bad. He's a jobber. He's a fraud. The whole episode's about Satan getting his power back, and he doesn't even win the fight. He doesn't even come close to Invincible. It felt like a waste of time. Another thing that drove me crazy was on Telescria when Mark and Oliver punched through the Viltrumite cruiser. We know what it looks like when a ship is hit with a torpedo or a fast-moving object from its underside. That was just a really underwhelming sequence of animation. The ship's asset doesn't change at all. There's just more and more fire popping up on top of it. It doesn't look like the ship is actually being destroyed because they just didn't have time to animate it like that. And my intention here is not to beat a dead horse. Everyone who's talking about the season is going to be talking about the animation, like the disappearing Viltrumite, or Mark's face changing into Nolan's face for that one frame. Like, there's a lot of weird stuff. But it's frustrating because you can see in Mark's rematch with Conquest that, like, they can put detail into the drawings. There can be good, high-quality animation. And the final scene between Thrag and Mark, where they're negotiating for basically the fate of the Earth, how much good lighting does for a show like this. The main problem with this show is that it looks so flat. You know, like, there's not a whole lot of dynamic shading or lighting or contrast on screen most of the time. So that leads to the show having that cheap look to it. A lot of people aren't necessarily too happy with, like, how Thrag looks, stuff like that. It's mostly just Cory Walker's art style. Cory's designs are what influenced the art style for this show. And Cory isn't really the one who drew Thrag the most. You're used to the Ryan Otley art style. We don't have that for Thrag. It took some getting used to for me too, but we'll talk more about Thrag later. It's hard to even say what could be done when it comes to animation to make this show look better, look more consistent. I mean, if we're being completely honest, the second season had an extra, like, 6 months before it started coming out. Like, season 1 of Invincible ended, I want to say, in, like, April of 2021, and season 2 started in December of 2023. Is that correct? I think so. So I had a year and a half to get ready, and I still can't really honestly say that I feel as though the animation in season 2 was leaps and bounds better than in the seasons that followed. Obviously, season 1 has the best and most consistent animation because that's the season that took the longest. They pretty much started working on this show right after the comics ended in 2018. So that season had the most time and effort put into it because that season was the one that's like, hey, if this works, we really have something. So we need to make sure that this proof of concept is as good as it could possibly be. What I'm trying to say is that even the season after the first one that had more time in the oven, it didn't look super crazy compared to seasons 3 or 4. So I don't know what the answer is. You know, obviously giving it more time sounds like the simple answer, but it may not be the correct one. I don't know. Maybe Invincible is just always going to look bad because Amazon seems to have no interest in slowing down when it comes to releasing seasons of Invincible, which is strange because seasons of The Boys have like 2 years in between. We can do that with Invincible, right? Is that okay? I guess they're just concerned about, you know, people forgetting about the show between seasons. They don't want it to fall into irrelevancy. So, but I don't know, like, Vox Machina has such good, consistent animation, and Invincible just doesn't. It's frustrating. But as far as negatives, that's really all I wanted to say here. So I'm going to spend the rest of this video praising Season 4, if that's okay with you guys. For me, this show's brightest spot has to be Nolan. This is the most involved he's been since Season 1. He has like 2 episodes worth of appearances in Season 2, with, you know, that I think the 4th episode pretty much being entirely devoted to him, and the Thraxan people and him just like kind of popping up in episodes after. And then in Season 3, again, he doesn't really have a whole lot of screen time, but he, you know, he makes the most of what he gets. But Season 4, Nolan's like the secondary main character. It's him, it's Alan, it's Mark. These are the major players when it comes to Season 4, and that's a great thing for me because I love these characters. Now, Robert Kirkman is in a very fortuitous position when it comes to storytellers. Most writers out there don't get a second chance at telling one of their biggest stories with a bigger budget and with a team of script writers who can help translate your ideas from the page to the screen, figure out ways to adapt it for a new audience, and make things work a little bit better than they did last time. And I've done a video recently talking about like changes that have been made from the comics to the show and whether or not those changes are for the better. And I think that, you know, after 4 seasons, I can say that the changes that matter the most have been for the better. And Nolan is one of them. You know, I think that in the years that have passed since Invincible's original run, we've kind of seen an influx of characters getting good redemption arcs, like Sasuke Uchiha, Loki. I want to say Zuko, but Zuko's redemption came before Omni-Man's did. There's a lot to happen in anime. Grimjow, Jaeger, characters like that. I think Robert Kirkman has seen like how appealing and how sexy a good redemption arc is. Endeavor from My Hero Academia is a huge example in recent memory. And considering the fact that, Invincible is the most similar to an anime that any Western comic adaptation has ever been, I think that, this is not lost on him. And so I appreciate the show and the characters within it making Nolan really work for his redemption. In the comics, it came way too easy. One conversation with Debbie, and he got her back. One conversation with Mark, and they were pretty much good again. I'm not here to say that Nolan is an irredeemable monster. I'm here to say that this show is actually talking about how difficult it must be to try to undo 1,000 years worth of brainwashing and programming and propaganda in just a little bit of time that you spent in a culture or in an environment that challenges your beliefs and your upbringing. How difficult it would be to have to rewire your brain. And Nolan does not deserve a second chance at all, but he's trying to earn one, and I think that that's really powerful in this kind of story. And I think that, by the end of season 5, when he's finally gotten through all of that and he has earned his redemption, it'll probably go down as one of the best redemption arcs in recent memory. Maybe even the best. Like, I really appreciate that Debbie is not making it easy for him. On the topic of Debbie, I will say I don't like her breaking up with Paul in the time skip during the Viltrumite War. I get it. Kirkman still wants to have Nolan and Debbie get back together. I don't particularly love the idea of them getting back together, but I don't know what you would do if you were to take that out of the story. So if it has to be here, then so be it. I would have liked to see them break up later on, maybe in season 5, maybe while Debbie's in space, not, before she goes. I don't know. I think that, like, Debbie and Nolan getting back together is going to be the thing that seals that marks the end of that character trajectory. And I'm cool with that. I do also want to talk about Oliver. I actually quite liked Oliver this season. Actually, you know what? Let's just talk about the Viltrumite War in general. Thetis is a son of a bitch, if we're being completely honest. Thetis is still a Viltrumite. He may not believe in the same cruelty that Argal and his culture, instilled into the Viltrumites, but he is still a Viltrumite, and he is willing to sacrifice countless lives to further his agenda. Now, his intentions are good. He does want to rid the universe of Viltrumite existence because they are the most dangerous species to ever exist. That's admirable. It's respectable. But the lengths that he's willing to go to get that, the people whose lives he's willing to risk and gamble and throw away, it's still kind of disgusting. Like, after Telescria gets ambushed, and he's like, oh, this is a small setback, a small price to pay for the possibility of ending the war. The look that Alan gives him, he's like, you sound insane. And it's because Thetis is insane. He has dedicated thousands of years to figuring out how to wipe out his own people. I can't even imagine what that would do to you, right? I actually really like Thetis as a character here, way more than I did in the original material. Alan and Tech Jacket kind of feel like frauds. Tech Jacket in the comics wasn't super, like, over-the-top useful, or useless. I think he kind of just, like, was there. I think he did take down one Viltrumite, in a 1v1. Zoe can't do that in the show. The fact that she took out, like, that Viltrumite version of Mark during the Invincible War in Season 3 by herself, from what we can assume, because the fight took place in outer space, it makes it seem like she would at least be able to beat a weaker Viltrumite. I know that, like, Mark is by no means considered an abnormally strong Viltrumite. None of the other Mark variants were as strong as the main Mark because they have not gone through the same training. It just, you would think she could perform a little bit better. But, you know, she needs these darts that come from these space beetles in order for Alan to be able to do any real damage to them. Alan, who, I don't know, it seemed like he'd be able to do pretty decently against a Viltrumite. He and Nolan killed that one Viltrumite Executioner last season with relative ease. I don't know, the power scaling is another thing in Invincible. It's really inconsistent that people have said a lot about. Like, some of the stuff that you'll see Mark survive, and then some of the stuff that you see him get his ass beat by, it doesn't really match up. It's a little frustrating sometimes. I'll admit that. But I actually like the episode where Mark is in recovery and it focuses mostly on Nolan and Oliver actually developing a relationship as father and son. That's a really heartwarming type of filler episode. There's a few fillers that happen in this season, right? But they're not all made equal. I mean, any time that Invincible is not actively involved in the story, it's going to feel like filler. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it is. I think that this season, the second episode of season 4, is the only episode that Mark is not in whatsoever, but it's still regarded as one of the best episodes of the entire show. So, filler can have many different definitions here. It kind of just, you have to pick your poison when it comes to that. But I think that there's an interesting dynamic when it comes to Nolan and his sons, because, you know, we've seen what childhood looks like on Viltrum. You might not even survive to become an adult, right? And even if you do, your parents will jump you. They will 2v1 you on the day of your adulthood, and if you die, that's it. If you survive against them and you fight well, then you get to be an adult. Then you get to become a Viltrumite. It's all testing and rituals and rites of passage on Viltrum. There is no fatherly love, no motherly love. So Nolan has to learn not only how to be a human, how to blend in amongst humans on Earth, but after Mark is born, he has to learn how to be a father, how to be that person that, you know, that your kid can lean on, that they can depend on, how to be a bee. I couldn't help it. I'm so sorry. And so that's what I think makes it so interesting for Nolan, and why, I mean, we see more about, like, what life on Earth does to a Viltrumite. We're going to see a lot of that in Season 5. But I think that stuff like that is what makes Nolan such a compelling character, because he's going against his very being as a Viltrumite. But he knows in his heart that he's supposed to love Oliver and Mark and care for them in a way that he never even experienced. So how do you even know how to be a good father if you're raised on Viltrum? You just don't. But now I want to talk about Thrag. This season is all about Thrag. You know, it's been a long time coming. I've been excited to see him since the show started, and now that we're here, does he live up to the hype? You know, does Lee Pace do a good job? Is he compelling? Is he intimidating? Is he imposing? Does he have presence? And the answer is yes. Thrag is everything that he needs to be. Thrag is a complicated villain, and I think that it shines through a lot more in the show than it does in the comics. He seems very simple there. And I don't know if that's just a symptom of Kirkman's writing, but here in the show, I feel like he already contains multitudes to a degree that he did not in the original material. You know, you have people debating, you know, whether Thrag is insane, or if he's a sociopath, or if he's even evil, right? And I think that it's difficult to develop a character who has no problem killing billions and billions and billions of people, and to then debate whether or not he is evil. We haven't seen something like this since Thanos, you know, and it's been almost 10 years. That's the level that Thrag is already on, and I think that it's amazing because, just like I was saying about Nolan, Thrag is exactly what he's supposed to be. He was bred and trained and developed to be the most, you know, ruthless, cruel, cold-hearted Viltrumite leader ever. the strongest, the most bloodthirsty. He is exactly what he was meant to be. He is the vision that Argyle had for the future of the planet Viltrum. But does that mean he's bad? All Thrag wants, and I'm not saying this to sound like a sympathizer or anything, all Thrag wants is to do right by his people. He has not only survivor's guilt, but he feels guilty through inaction because he was told by Emperor Argyle all those years ago, if you feel that Thadis's, weakness and sense of mentality is a threat to the Viltrum Empire, do something about it. He hesitated. Thadis killed Argyle. Thrag is in a position that he wasn't ready to be in yet. He's in a position that he may have dreaded even being in the first place because he didn't act. He's basically spent the last few thousand years since then being like, you can never accuse me of that again because I will always take the course of action that I believe is best for my people and guarantees our longevity and our continued existence. Then the Scourge virus hits, and it's something that he is powerless to do anything about. What's he supposed to do? Punch the Scourge virus? He can't. And again, he probably feels guilty because he didn't find Thadis before this happened. He feels responsible for the state that the Viltrumite race is in right now, and he is the only one who can do anything about it. So even after his planet is destroyed by 2 traitors and a half-breed, he still shows mercy to Mark and to Nolan because it's like, despite everything, we are all still Viltrumites, and us destroying each other does not solve the problem. You know what does solve the problem? Rebuilding our population. Let's go to Earth. And it's like this walking nuclear option. And it's like, hey Mark, you have a choice to make. Even though you have no choice, really. You can either allow us to live here as regular people and let us go around the world fucking, basically, to rebuild our population over the next few thousand years, or mutually assured destruction for both of our races. And when you really think about it, even if Mark had said no, Thrag could have just killed Mark and done it anyway. Mark literally is powerless to do anything about it. And that's what's so interesting to me about the finale. I think that the finale of Season 4 is the best episode that the show has given us so far. And this season is the best season. I think that Season 4 is the best season of the show, even with that 4th episode. The show has not really slowed down very often to focus on Mark's mental state and really address the things that he's been through over the years until recently. And I think it all works so perfectly because, again, their situations kind of mirror each other between Mark and Thrag. Mark is inadvertently put in this position where if he does not act, if he does not make the right decision, his people are gone. And if Thrag really wanted to be cruel about it, he could kill every human on Earth and leave Mark alive. But that would be bad for both of them, obviously. Thrag wants to avoid this because he, above all other things, wants to rebuild his people. And Mark has to just let him. It's the toughest decision that I've really seen a superhero have to make, and it feels so much more impactful here, having it be Mark's decision alone without Nolan being there to influence it. All that being said, though, there is one thing that I kind of wanted to address. It's about Mark. There are things and dialogue moments that have been taken out from the comics that I think serve to try to make a sanitized, more agreeable version of Mark. There are moments where he acts like a Viltrumite or he talks like his father. In the Season 3 conversation after Oliver kills the Mauler twins, he's like, well, don't you ever think sometimes the dad was right? In the comics, Mark's like, yes, sometimes I do think he was right. That was taken out of the show. In the Second Invasion, Mark is like, I won't let you do this to my planet. This is my planet. My people have been through too much. I won't let you do this. And it seems like he kills Russ Livingston more out of a sense of desperation than only responsibility. I think that was put in the comics to kind of have him echo the words of his father. Taken out. it's taken out. And then on, you know, when he has his rematch with Conquest, the comics specify that he caught Conquest as he was exhaling, so there wasn't very much air in his chest. Mark is like, oh, you thought you could catch a break because you were on this planet, that you could breathe. That, like, that's your last mistake. Like, he very deliberately is setting out to kill Conquest there. I guess they thought that sounded too homicidal, too crazy. I don't know. But, like, I think that Mark is allowed to have that edge. He's allowed to sound a little unhinged sometimes because he's not well. All the stuff that Mark has been through, he's not well. But I don't know. It feels like we're just trying to create a more sanitized, like, you know, universally acceptable version of Mark, and I don't particularly love that. It's almost like we're trying to make sure that he always says or does the right thing in every situation. But yeah, that's what I got to say about that, I guess. But yeah, that's been a half hour of me yapping about Invincible Season 4. I think that it's an incredible season of television. I am excited for Season 5, even though I think that Season 5 is going to kind of be where the show starts to lose me. There's a lot of things that happen after this point in the comics that I'm not excited for. I'm not here to spoil it all for you, but, you know, if I do those other videos about Seasons 2 and 3, I might talk a little bit more spoilery, and that'll kind of be behind that $1 a month paywall. So if you want to have more in-depth discussions about that, let me know if I should do those Patreon videos, and we'll talk about it there. But, yeah, I'm excited for Season 5. I would like to say that I am going to stick with this show to the end, but like I said, there's stuff in the comic, like, I didn't even read the whole comic because stuff kept happening that I didn't like. But, like I said before in this video, the show is a do-over. It's a second draft of the story, so it's entirely possible that changes will be made and that things will be taken out or even added that service the story and make it better overall. I'm completely open to that. If we do get a better version of the story, I am completely on board with that. But as of right now, that's where I am on Invincible. Are you finished with Season 4? I sure hope so if you made it 28 minutes into this video. What was your favorite episode? What's your favorite moment from Season 4 or from the entire show? Whatever it is, whatever you think, comment below and let me know. And that's all I got for you guys today. I'll see you later.